Call the meeting to order. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Briner?
Here.
Mr. Buckley?
Here.
Ms. Jisling?
Present.
Mrs. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Tuttle?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do have to wear glasses. Those one eye. Jesus, that should be on the right agenda. Sorry, thank you.
What's this one first?
First, fourth on the agenda. Nomination, election of the president. Have a motion, please? Nomination?
Mr. Tuttle? Nomination for president.
Thank you. Anyone else? Second? Anyone?
Oh, second. Me.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Next, nomination and election of the vice president.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Buckley.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Next, board representative appointments. First on the list, OSBA Legislative Liaison. Any volunteers?
I'll do it.
Okay. Anyone else? Was that Mary?
Yep.
Okay, Mary. Next on the list, OSBA Student Achievement Liaison.
I'd be happy to continue as that.
Thank you. Mentor School Boards Foundation Representative.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Ken. Next on the agenda, to establish place and time for regular meetings of the Board of Education. Need I read that?
No, I just indicate we'll continue the second Tuesday of each month with the exception of November when we go to the third Tuesday, knowing that the OSBA Capital Conference occurs during the second week.
So that's the one we moved from the
Yes.
standard second Tuesday. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. So moved.
Second. Do I need a second?
Do we need a
Yeah, we need a motion second.
Okay.
motion,
we need
second,
a
please?
motion. So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Next, establishing the Board of Education Service Fund for 2019.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Next, motion for providing for employment of legal counsel for the Board of Education.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
So
Mr.
moved.
Tuttle?
Yes. Next, the approval of the membership to the Ohio School Board Association for 2019.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yeah, so moved. Thank you. Approval of membership in the Ohio, we just did that. Even with my glasses, I double read that.
assistant.
Oh,
That's the second one.
that's the second one, so it's not the same. Approval of membership to the Ohio School Board Association's Legal Assistance Fund for 2019.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes, please call the roll. Oh, you did. Approved. Appointment of the hearing officer.
Oh, one more.
NSBA.
National School Boards.
Number 13.
Number 13, approval of the membership to the National School Board Association for 2019.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Olson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Appointment of hearing officer.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Motion for appointment of compliance officers.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Motion for authorizing the superintendent to establish class fees, student fees, and other appropriate fees.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. And authorizing compensation for some miscellaneous duties performed by certified and classified staff members.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. An authorization for Director of Business Operations to advertise for bids pursuant to Section 3313.46 of the revised code.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Authorizing the treasurer to file real estate complaints.
So moved.
Second.
I
Please
would-
call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
If I may, just very quickly, the Board of Education for a number of years has been engaged in monitoring requests for changes in values of for new construction or additions of non-residential properties. And we continue to strive to encourage the Lake County Board of Revision and the State Tax Commissioner's Office to set the true market value for all the properties. But we do not engage in any filings for residential properties.
That's a good point. Thanks for explaining that, Mr. Wilson. Appreciate that. Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. A motion for requesting advance payments of funds for county treasurer, from the county treasurer.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. A motion for authorization for submission of grants and funding programs.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. A motion for authorizing the treasurer to maintain petty cash and change funds.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
A motion authorizing selective student activity program contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. A motion authorizing non-salary remuneration for employees.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. A motion for dispensing with separate resolutions approving checks.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. A motion authorizing blanket purchase orders.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Yes.
Call the tax budget hearing to order, please. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Briner?
Here.
Mr. Buckley?
Here.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Here. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Wilson?
Yes, annually, the Board of Education has to prepare a tax budget request for the County Budget Commission, and then must hold a public hearing prior to adoption. This is a provision in the law that predates, it's over a century old now, but the basis of this is to justify the need for the collection of previously authorized property taxes to support the school district. So every year, we prepare a tax budget on the form requested to be used by the Lake County Budget Commission, and rely on our current 5-year forecast to estimate the general operating fund budget and the permanent improvement budget for the next fiscal year. Because this document's used for justification to collect previously authorized taxes, we also recognize there have been occasions that there have been sale of delinquent tax liens, there have been above certified collections of taxes, or other occurrences that bring in more money than assumed in the 5-year forecast. If we don't identify a need for monies above that, there's no authority for the Budget Commission to levy all the taxes for a calendar year. Recognizing that and identifying deferred maintenance and instructional technology needs in the district, in addition to using the 5-year forecast, we include a funding need for those items in the event that additional dollars would become available. And again, it's for instructional technology throughout the school district and to address any deferred maintenance needs. We also do the same thing for our permanent improvement fund, which is a 1 mil tax levied for the purposes of non-operating funds for the repair, maintenance, improvement of our facilities. And we also identify an additional amount of monies that could be allocated to maintain our facilities if it became available. Because of the purpose of this tax budget and the source being our 5-year forecast, we do this to be in compliance. The board must adopt it by January 15th. It must be filed with the Budget Commission by January 20th. But as we progress through our current fiscal year, we will update the 5-year forecast in May, and I begin working with Mr. Porter on a new annual operating budget earlier than that, based on actual activities and additional known factors, including the first half tax settlement, which will come in March. So at this time, I would open to the board or to anyone in attendance the tax budget hearing and be happy to provide information or respond to any questions. If none, we can ask for adjournment. Roll call in a second.
There's no vote to be held on that, so that was the presentation.
It will be in the regular meeting tonight.
It'll be in the regular meeting.
Yes.
That was the presentation. So,
Dan,
having no questions?
do we anticipate the state cutting more funds for the school system?
We do not know that at this time. I've been engaged with Representative Cupp and Representative Patterson, who have spearheaded a legislative effort to change the way funds are allocated, not necessarily identify how many funds will be budgeted from the general operating fund of the state, but how it would be allocated. In that process, there have been several conversations with the governor-elect and lieutenant governor-elect, and I know there's another meeting this week identifying the need to prioritize funding K-12 education and recognizing the significant reductions that have occurred over the last 10 years. But until we see the governor-elect's first budget, it's difficult to even know what the starting point's going to be relative to this year's budget.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
And we're good until 7 p.m.
Ready. Mentor Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting, Tuesday, January 8th, is hereby called to order. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Briner?
Here.
Mr. Buckley?
Here.
Ms. Jisling?
Present.
Mrs. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Tuttle?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll do this. All right.
I need to go back. Put my glass up with this. The January 8th regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education is called to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 3313.15 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Wilson, will you please call the roll? We did that.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Mr. Tuttle, come on.
Okay.
Sorry, Tom.
Cross that off. Put that in again. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We did that too.
Yeah. Next one.
Even with reading glasses on and one good eye, and I'm still reading it again. Sorry. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January 8th regular meeting of the Board of Education meeting. Prior to this evening, each board member has received for their review and consideration the agenda and materials associated with each agenda item for the board's approval via the district's paperless Board of Education agenda system, Board Docs. The public can access the agenda through the school district website. The agenda is available through the district's website for public viewing the Sunday prior to the board meeting. Board members have the opportunity to call the superintendent and chief financial officer for information concerning agenda items and to request, if needed, additional information. There are two places on the agenda when the board entertains comments from the community. The first hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on agenda items only. The second hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on any subject, whether it is an item on the agenda or another issue. When addressing the board, please state your name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please address questions to the president. This meeting is being televised on a delayed basis and will be shown on Spectrum Cable, channel 1026 in Mentor and channel 1025 in Mentor on the Lake. This meeting is also being videotaped and will be shown on our YouTube channel, Cardinal TV, Mentor, Ohio. Please place your mobile telephones on silent mode during the meeting. Thank you. Now we'll do the approval of the minutes. Mr. Wilson, of the December 11th, 2018 meeting. Thank you.
So moved?
Second?
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Next, we had hearing of the public on agenda items only. Having none, superintendent's report and recommendations, Mr. Porter.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. I have the following recommendations listed under the consent agenda and recommend approval of items 5A1 through 5A3.
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. President and members of the board, January is School Board Recognition Month. The entire Mentor Schools community thanks you for everything you do to help make this school system so successful. Tonight, students from Orchard Hollow Elementary School have a presentation for you. I would like to invite Principal Karen Trunk to the podium to begin our presentation.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Porter, Mr. Wilson, and our audience. I am Mrs. Karen Trunk, and I would like to introduce our two student council advisors, Mrs. Jennifer May and Mrs. Erica Jones, and they will briefly introduce our student council here with us tonight.
Hi, I would like to introduce our student council. We have our presidents, Chloe, Sean, Noni, our vice president, Joey, our treasurer, Vivian, our secretary, Ethan, and our classroom representatives, Melody, Kaylin, Jonas, and JJ.
You know, I'm really proud to be an Orchard Hollow Husky, but I'm even more proud to know that I'm also a Mentor Cardinal. What do you mean by Mentor Cardinal? You know, that's the mascot for the Mentor Schools, the Mentor Cardinal.
Haven't you heard of hashtag once a card? Where do you think that comes from?
Guys, we're wasting time here. Talking about the Mentor Cardinals is not the cardinal reason why we're here tonight.
Now I'm really confused.
We spend a lot of time in reading, doing word work, and one of the things we know is that words can have different meanings. The Mentor Cardinals are very important, but the cardinal reason we're here tonight is to recognize some people who do a lot of work behind the scenes to make our Mentor District a great place to learn. So let's get to it. Our school board members have made a commitment to the community, and they make a difference for us. We want to make sure that they know they are appreciated every day by all of us students here at Mentor Schools. Oh, yes, let's get to it. Miss Briner, the cardinal reason we appreciate you is for all of your work as president of the school board. We thank you for making sure that everyone knows the great things that are happening in our schools and on our teams. Thank you.
Mr. Tuttle, the cardinal reason we appreciate you is first keeping up with all of the new laws and things that the state legislature decides related to schools. You always keep us informed. Thank you.
Mr. Buckley, the cardinal reason we appreciate you is because you have continued to give your time and talent back to the Mentor Schools. A little birdie told us that our principal wouldn't even have been a principal if it wasn't for your service and mentoring. Thank you.
Mrs. Jesselnig, the cardinal reason we appreciate you is because you two have given so much time and talent to our Mentor Schools as a parent, a teacher, and now as a school board member. We also know that you are an honorary member of our school community because a student very special to you is a member of our school. Thank you for your service.
Miss Roberts, the cardinal reason we appreciate you is for taking time to get involved to keep our school system great. You are a member of the Mentor community and saw that you could be an important part of the team, so you are sharing your talents with us. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Wilson and Mr. Porter, you come to work every day and work hard to make sure that the Mentor Schools are the very best that they can be. Every day at Orchard Hollow, we say a pledge about being our best, so we really appreciate grown-ups who believe in the same thing that we can look up to. Thank you for your service.
We just wanted to give you these small tokens of appreciation and this fantastic thank you banner, just to say thank you so very much for all of your hard work and dedication for our schools and the community. Thank you.
As a final gift of our appreciation, we want to give you this book from some of our students. You really do make a difference.
That's awesome. Really? Look at this. This is for me? Well, they can share it. So we're in third. Thank you. I am overwhelmed. Got here a little late, but you can't imagine how much I look forward to this every January for the students to come forward. And gosh, you're all so bright. Did a great job. The speech that each one of you had, so clear. I could hear every one of the words and see you, by the way. Thank you so much. It's been more than 10 years I've been on the board, and every January, it just fulfills me even more. It seems every year it gets better than the last year. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Orchard Hollow, yay.
Thank you, Orchard Hollow students and staff members and parents for coming tonight.
Yep. Very, very good. Next on the agenda, the recognition of service facility dedication to recipients. Presenting Mr. Porter and Mr. Buckley.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, the current service facility for Mentor Schools was constructed in 1985. Since 1986, we have dedicated this facility to individuals whose dedication, commitment, and years of service to the students and staff have made a significant impact on our district. To date, we have honored 86 exemplary employees. This year, it is our privilege to present this award to 4 more recipients and their families. I appreciate having Mr. Buckley here with me up front to join me at the podium. First up tonight, and if we could have you come up, and then we're going to talk a little bit about you, Mrs. Sarah Carver. Mrs. Carver started her career with Mentor Schools as a secretary at Shore Middle School. She moved to Mentor High during the 91-92 school year, where she finished her career as a secretary in the main office. During her time at Mentor High, she was the varsity cheerleading coach and a member of the high school faculty council. She held leadership roles in the district's insurance committee, the school calendar committee, and with Mentor classified employees. Mrs. Carver was also awarded the prestigious Ohio Education Association Support Professional of the Year. It was mentioned in her nomination, and I know firsthand how well Mrs. Carver built relationships with all stakeholders, including students, parents, certified and classified staff, and administrators. She has truly made a difference for Mentor Schools. Congratulations.
Good for you, though.
Next, we have an award for Dr. Stephen Heller. I would like to invite Carrie, Stephanie, and Michael Heller to join us here at the podium, please. Dr. Heller made a significant impact on the Mentor Schools community for 35 years. His service as a principal, teacher, athletic director, and coach was simply outstanding. He spent most of his years at Ridge Junior High, Mentor High School, and Fairfax Elementary School. He too was a relationship builder who developed a rapport with all stakeholders and lifelong friendships with so many people along the way. He will always be known for his fish philosophy of playing, making their day, being present, and choosing a good attitude. He not only encouraged the fish philosophy, but he modeled it for all of us every single day. In the past year, his impact was so noted that our Ridge Elementary School gymnasium and the swimming pool next door at the Lake Health Brunner Sandin Dietrich Wellness Campus have been dedicated to him. Congratulations to the Heller family on this well-deserved honor for Stephen. Our next award is for Dr. Joffrey Jones, who is unable to join us this evening, but I would like to invite his niece, Mrs. Tracy Coleman, to join us up front on his behalf. Dr. Jones improved the lives and learning of students, staff, and administrators alike. As a unit principal at Mentor High School, as a principal at Ridge Junior High, and ultimately as the Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Instruction here in Mentor, leaving a positive impact on our schools and our community. He was best remembered for pioneering team teaching and cross-curricular integration of content, all while making sure our schools had developed a sense of community within. Besides providing challenging and engaging curricula, Dr. Jones carefully hired the most qualified staff members possible, many of whom are still having an impact on our district today. After his years of commitment to Mentor Schools, Dr. Jones served as superintendent in the Euclid and Orange districts, as well as professor at Kent State University. Although not here tonight, Dr. Jones sends his heartfelt appreciation, and it is our great privilege to present to Ms. Coleman this award for her uncle. Congratulations. And our final honoree this evening is Mr. Victor Sen. I would like to invite Mr. Sen's family to come forward and please join us. For 20 years, Mentor Schools was indeed fortunate to have Mr. Sen as part of our staff. He taught physical science and all levels of chemistry at Mentor High. Most of all, he epitomized the term service in his time in the district. Besides being many students' favorite all-time teacher with his lively lessons and unconventional experiments, he spent countless hours as a freshman class advisor, faculty council president, volleyball coach, and he was varsity swim coach for 13 years. Like our other honorees tonight, it was the relationships that he built during his time that have changed lives forever. After his unexpected passing this past spring, so many present and former students and staff members came forward to share special stories about Mr. Sen that showed how much he cared about this community. And he did it all in such a humble and unassuming way. He never looked for credit. He just wanted the best for everyone else. For this dedicated service to our district, we are proud to share this award tonight with Mr. Sen's family.
So we'll take a break right now. We have some students and some parents, and you might want to go home, do some homework, study. Thank you very much. All right. Back in session. Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Mr. President and members of the board, at this time, I would like to invite Mrs. Barbara Bonas to the podium for the Course of Studies Revisions presentation.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Porter, and Mr. Wilson, I am honored and excited to share the proposed high school curriculum revision for the 2019-2020 school year. The Mentor High School Math, Art, Computer Science, and Technology departments met over the past several months to revise the curriculum and propose recommendations. Representatives from the committees are in the audience this evening, and I would like to commend them for countless hours they devoted to help prepare these innovative student programming options. We began our journey by identifying the curriculum needs and reviewing the district's strategic plan. The focus of the revision was to expand STEAM and career pathway offerings at the high school level, which aligned with the following goals and strategies presented on this slide. These strategies provided the vision and framework for the curriculum revision discussions. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. It is an integrative approach to learning that requires an intentional connection between standards, assessments, and lesson design and implementation. STEAM is a way to take the benefits of STEM and complete the package by integrating these principles in and throughout the arts. It allows students to connect their learning in these critical areas together with arts practices, elements, design principles, and standards to provide the whole palette of learning. Our district currently provides Project Lead the Way STEAM instruction to all students in grades K-5. We also offer electives in 6-8 and engineering and computer science pathways at the high school level. The proposed revisions expand and align our current offerings with Project Lead the Way, providing students with additional opportunities to explore engineering and computer science fields of study. Keeping in mind that a career pathway could be enlisting, enrolling, or becoming employed, we want to ensure that our students make insightful and deliberate decisions regarding courses they choose. When students transition to the next stage of their lives, it is important that they find there was value in the experiences and the courses they selected at Mentor High. The course revisions align to various pathways and offer curriculum that will be relevant for students after graduation. I will begin with the Maths Committee's recommendation. The committee proposes the addition of the new course called Modeling and Quantitative Reasoning. This course provides students with an additional option to meet the fourth-year math requirement. It is especially appropriate for students who are not intending to pursue a career pathway regarding calculus or not ready or desire an alternative to function, statistics, and trigonometry. The course incorporates mathematical concepts into real-world scenarios and builds on topics presented in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Students will learn about problem solving, critical thinking, mathematical concepts in personal finance, probability, statistics, visual and spatial modeling, and discrete mathematics. Students will be asked to analyze and interpret real-world quantitative information in contexts such as sports statistics, career fields, investing and borrowing money, and games of chance in order to draw conclusions that are relevant to the students' daily lives. The Art Committee is recommending adding levels 2 through 4 to current studio art courses, replacing the history of art through painting with digital arts and designs, and adding portfolio preparation. This will provide students the ability to deepen their knowledge in a particular area of art and will provide them the opportunity to develop portfolio content required for the AP Studio Art exam. Levels 2 through 4 course seat availability will be determined by seats remaining after level 1 student enrollment is established. The art teachers plan to differentiate their instruction based on a student's individual level and portfolio goals. Digital Arts and Design is a new, innovative course that will integrate technology and art. It is designed for students who wish to pursue the knowledge in the area of computer-generated art. Students will gain an understanding of the processes and systems common to careers in graphic design, print, advertising, animation, and marketing. Portfolio preparation is a unique course that will be taken concurrently with another leveled studio art course. The instructor will focus on individual student goals to support the development of an art portfolio, which is required for the AP exams, college admissions, the Art Honors Diploma, and scholarship applications. This will provide our students with additional opportunities to earn AP credit because they now will be able to access the AP 2D and 3D art exams. The Technology Education Committee recommends the expansion of the Project Lead the Way engineering program. This program will provide a defined pathway for students interested in the engineering field. Students enrolled in engineering courses may have the option of earning college credit in addition to their high school elective credit, depending on where they choose to attend college. Introduction to Engineering Design is a course that covers a wide range of STEAM principles and is based heavily on the design process. Topics include careers in engineering, 3D design and modeling, prototype construction, statistics, and quality control. This course is ideal for a student who's interested in becoming a product designer, drafter, or manufacturing designer. Principles of Engineering is a course that focuses on more traditional engineering concepts. Topics include simple machine construction and testing, statistics and truss design, robotic machine control, ballistics and kinematics, structures and hydraulic systems. This course would be ideal for a student who is interested in becoming a mechanical engineer, a systems engineer, or simply has an interest in physics. Civil engineering and architecture topics will include careers in civil engineering, residential and community building design, site layout and planning, building structures, service and utility hookups, and materials testing. This course is designed for a student who is interested in becoming a construction manager, architect, or structural engineer. The proposed Woodworking Technology 1 and 2 courses would provide an additional hands-on elective opportunity for students interested in woodworking design. These courses, in addition to our current electronics and home maintenance electives, provide students exposure to the trades and act as a gateway to many of our CTE programs, including construction management. The Business Computer Science Committee recommends the revisions listed on this slide. The revised computer science pathway presents students with a broad array of computer science disciplines and enrichment opportunities that will prepare them for the challenges in the 21st century. Additionally, this curriculum offers students the prospect of enriching their computer science experience with electives that focus on developing skills in computer programming and cybersecurity. Computer Science Essentials is an excellent entry point for students interested in exploring computer science. They will have many opportunities for creative expression and exploration in topics of personal interest, whether it be through app development, web design, or connecting computing with the physical world. Computer Science Programming with Java is a course that introduces students to one of the most popular programming languages. Students will learn how Java is used to develop computer applications, robotics, appliances, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. Students will learn the fundamentals of programming with Java while developing 3D animated worlds and desktop computer applications. The cybersecurity course explores this ever-growing and far-reaching new field. It covers concepts such as secure information systems, protection against cyber threats, and the ethical impact of cybersecurity situations. This course offers engaging real-world challenges that help develop computational thinking and computer science knowledge and skills. Our career tech students have many internship opportunities, but the Strategic Planning Committee felt there was an urgent need to expand internships for our students choosing the traditional college pathway. Our students must have the opportunity to explore potential career options within and outside the classroom so they are able to make informed decisions when determining their future goals. The current Lake Health internship course has been renamed Professional Internship and Professional Internship with Honors. The course name was updated because we plan to provide additional opportunities outside the health field. This real work experience will provide students with an opportunity to explore career interests, expand classroom knowledge, and begin to build professional networks. It is important to note that the course revisions have been done in such a manner that recognizes the importance of offering a vibrant and evolving curriculum along with current personnel configurations. Establishing career pathways and providing STEAM opportunities needs to be balanced with staffing restraints and budget implications. It is important to communicate that that the proposed changes are not expected to increase high school staffing. The 4 departments will continue their work by revising curriculum maps and attending professional development. Our teachers are scheduled to receive Adobe training. Computer science and engineering teachers will attend a 2-week summer project Lead the Way training, and the math teachers will receive qualitative modeling PD from the Ohio Department of Education next year. In conclusion, I would like to take a moment to summarize the benefits of the proposed curriculum changes. These include an increased number of courses aligned to STEAM initiatives, increased access to AP exams and the ability to earn college credit in art, engineering, and computer science, expansion of career pathway options for students, and increased internship opportunities for our seniors. This concludes my presentation, and at this time I would welcome any questions or comments from the board.
I was so impressed. That's a lot of work that was accomplished, so thank you to all the hands involved. It's a stunning expansion without expanding the number of staff members. So it takes a lot of creative problem solving and a lot of willingness and flexibility on the part of staff to continue to do their best and improve on that. I thought it was remarkable.
Yeah, I would like to, compliment the teachers on all the committees because they did an outstanding job of coming up with the curriculum and have been really wonderful about differentiating instruction, providing different levels of students in their classes to expand those opportunities for our students without expanding staffing.
I think the changes in instructional model to teacher as facilitator follows perfectly with that concept that you're helping each individual where he or she is going. And the other thing I wanted to ask quickly was, is there a chance that we could have internships offered during the summer? I know capacity is difficult, especially for the health. They can only accommodate so many students at a time. Is that feasible? Because I know there's a teacher advisor role that has to be played and some follow-up and all of that.
Right. Right now, there is a teacher that is overseeing that, and obvious, her hours are within the school year. But we're looking at expanding that over the next 3 years and looking at possibility of expanding the whole program. So providing more internships and maybe looking at expanding that position.
And maybe a question for Bill. Any chance that College Credit Plus dollars could pick up the tab for AP course exams?
I don't.
Because it seems like it's the same end goal, but for students to get free tuition and have to pay for their own AP exams, that seems sort of contradictory.
I'm pretty sure that, I'd have to look into that, but I'm pretty sure there's some reimbursement for students that need the help for AP exams, but they would have to go through.
They'd have to prove financial need.
Yeah, I think there is something at the high school level. I can look into that for you.
And I just add, the college credit cost budget is kind of an uncontrolled amount, that it was created by the legislature, and the program's funded by deducts to our state subsidies, and we've seen growing significant increases every year that has challenged us from a budget standpoint within the curriculum department.
It'd be nice to be able to support our students within our own walls and curriculum and high-quality learning.
Thank you for your leadership, Barb.
Thank you very much.
If I could just add, I would thank you for the presentation, and thank you to everyone that was involved in coming up with these options. I think it's important that we keep up to date with the curriculum and come up with new programs that are for today, and especially with the computer world, the cybersecurity, and all the things that are changing constantly, and offering our students challenging courses. You know, what was relevant 10 years ago may not be today. So I'm glad to see some of these changes with the math and the art and the computers and the engineering courses. So I thank you and the team for their hard work on this. We know that it takes time and effort to get these things accomplished. So good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's almost like you took a page out of, in my microcosm of the world where I work, it sounds like you look at our job board and all the job openings and all the skills and requirements that are needed to come to work, everything from graphic designers to app developers to quantitative modeling. We have BI developers. There's jobs like crazy opened up right now. And it's that, it was like, did you really go on our job site and look?
I did.
This is that specific. I only have one more question, though. How do you market these new courses to the students?
That's a great question. So our high school counselors are actually meeting with all of our students starting next week and going over those options, of course, scheduling. Some of the slides that they will be sharing are all of these new courses.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave?
Oh, sure.
So you did answer one of my questions, and Jenny spoke to it also, as well as the staffing in-house and personnel. Great answer. So I didn't have to ask the question. But I would like to add also, Mary, what she said, it's right on, and Deanne, it's the right direction. It's being proactive and not reactive, looking out ahead to where our students can move to and enlighten them, expand their their inquiry into what is out there, what can they do tomorrow, rather than waiting till when they graduate to decide this is what I want to be. So their lifelong learning process has been fed while they're in school here instead of waiting till they get out and deciding. It's definitely in the right direction, adding the letter A to STEM and making it STEAM. Art, with art, they have to imagine, they have to envision art as well. It's not just 1 + 1 is 2 and all the math, but the engineering is fantastic, all in the right direction. In technology, the children don't need to be a liberal arts student to get a job in the future. They need something else beside that. And these are moving towards well-paying jobs. Right direction. It's an exciting change. The direction continues to move. Well done to you and the team.
Thank you.
all the
And I'd
members
like
and the
to
staff.
thank our Education Strategic Planning Committee, because they helped, envision this moving forward with the STEAM, so, along with our curriculum committee, so.
And hats off also to Mr. Luciano's summer camp program that builds interest and expands just kids' experiences at the elementary level. I had a chance to see Mrs. Malinowski's Robotics Club. They had their robotics showcase over Christmas, or just before Christmas break. And that's just another example of that early lighting that spark for kids. So thank you.
Well, it's all part of a team, and it's in the Super Bowl. It's fantastic. Without the team and the coaches, the players, everyone who works on this, and all the individuals that I've met over the years I've been here, they're here. They're at the highest level, high performers, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it for our community and the school and our kids. That's a winner. I mean, you guys are in the Super Bowl, and you always compete. Seriously, I mean, it's there. You don't give up. You play hard. You play to win. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barb.
Thank you, Mrs. Bonas. Mr. President and members of the board, at this time, I am recommending that the course of study revisions be approved.
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
And in the spirit of what has just been presented and approved, I am also recommending approval of the resolution supporting alternative pathways for Ohio high school graduation requirements as our state legislators continue to work on this challenge.
So moved.
Second.
And thank you for getting that together. And it's right on spot for what we need.
Thank you.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. President and members of the board, I am recommending approval of agenda item C1 related to certified personnel and C2 through C4, all related to the human resource matters.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Thank you. This concludes my portion of tonight's agenda.
Next on the agenda, Board of Education report and recommendations. Mr. Wilson?
Yes, in accordance with state laws, when we determine that we no longer have a need for property that collectively or individually exceeds $10,000, the board must declare that the equipment is surplus and no longer needed, and allow us to proceed with a public auction of that property. So tonight, we're asking that the board authorize us to go through the process for used MacBooks that are no longer needed, MacBook Pros for the school district.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. Next on the agenda, my legislative report. I distributed a copy within the last 48 hours to all the board members. I'd like to read that part of it. Thanks to the hard work by members of OSBA, BASA, and OASBO to defeat House Bill 343, the bill did not come up for a vote on the Senate floor. House Bill 343 would have placed new restrictions and requirements for school districts wishing to challenge property valuations. OSBA, BASA, and OASBO were adamantly opposed to the bill when it was passed by the House early in 2018. Several members came forward to testify, that's us, not us in particular, but board members, came forward to testify in opposition to the bill during the Senate hearings in June 2018 and during the lame duck session. Because of our strong collective opposition to the bill, Senator John Eklund, who chairs the Senate Ways and Means Committee, met with stakeholders to develop a compromised substitute version of the bill. The committee voted to recommend this version for passage by a full Senate. However, the Senate leadership chose not to bring the substitute bill forward for a vote on the Senate floor. Now that the Senate adjourned for the final time December 27th, OSBA was pleased to share the good news with members now that the 132nd GA has completed its work. House Bill 343 did not get approved. And I think you'll recall this came up at least 2 or 3 different times throughout the year on the Legislative Liaison Report, where they wanted to make it much, much more difficult to pursue property valuations on commercial property. They wanted to make it very difficult. Another bill, I would like to add also that the USBA believes the Senate's failure to pass that legislation was due to the work of the combined organizations and the members who spoke out strongly against the bill. OSBA knows that supporters of the proposal will likely try again in the next legislative session, so we must remain vigilant. Another bill opposed by the organizations that could have made its way through the last days of the legislative session was Senate Bill 21. The House had amended the provision for House Bill 342 into SB 21, which would have reduced the number of election poll workers required for a precinct where electronic poll books are used. House Bill 343 would have revised the terms used in ballot language to describe the levies proposed by school districts. Because of House Bill 342, provisions were amended into a Senate bill. It was feared the Senate would vote to adopt the legislation. OSBA sometimes has seen one chamber pushing its bill through by inserting them into bills proposed in other chambers as a way to obtain support. However, in this case, the Senate chose to delay official vote on the House changes to SB 21 to the point where it died due to legislative inaction. Once again, OSB appreciates the work of members in the defeat of this legislation. Adoption of Senate Bill 21, House Bill 342, would have made it more confusing for voters and therefore increased the possibility for no votes on school levies. Dan, you care to comment on that, SB 21, 342?
Yes. For as long as I've been in this business, when the Board of Education determines to request a levy renewal or a new levy from the community to support the school district, the ballot language has expressed the cost per $100 of taxable value in the community. This legislation would have changed how the fiscal impact was presented in a way that perhaps could be misinterpreted or not clearly translated into the impact on an individual voter or household. So this was an effort that I think was trying to change something that had not been broken or did not need to be changed. So for us, this is something that we can rely on and continue to represent to the community when we ask for a levy renewal or a new levy. The ballot language will express a relatively easy and consistent way to personalize the impact of a vote.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, in no way was it a distortion or a misrepresentation of the taxes in which a voter would be responsible to pay based upon their valuation of property. Why they wanted to change it, I'm not sure. What Dan just explained is really understandable, I hope. Our voters will vote yes or no based upon their affordability and not someone confusing them.
Yes.
Thank you. That's my report. Chief Financial Officer's report and recommendations. Mr. Wilson?
Yes, I recommend approval of agenda items 7A through E, and would like to note we're always challenged in the month of January to close the fiscal year end and distribute the financial briefs, and I did bring them to our meeting tonight. They are posted out on board docs, but beginning with the December financial statements, we have modified the format slightly. As the board will recall, we have created a general fund operating reserve, which under state definitions is still considered part of the general fund, but in our financial brief summary, we have netted that out so we can compare current income to current expenses minus the one-time funding of our reserve fund. So on page 3 of the financial briefs, you will begin to see a conclusion for the net activity and then a separate reporting for the operating reserve fund. And also on the first page of the revenue report by fund, we netted out the main categories for the operating budget and created a new category to reflect the operating reserve fund. Having said that, December has been and was once again a relatively quiet month with no unusual activities, and we're tracking to budget on both revenues and expenses.
Any questions for Mr. Wilson? Thank you, Dan.
Need a motion and
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
And to follow up our tax budget hearing conducted earlier this evening, I recommend a board adopt fiscal year 2020 tax budget and authorize me to file it with the Lake County Budget Commission prior to the January 20th filing deadline.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
That completes my report this evening.
Thank you. Do we have any unfinished business? No. New business? Hearing of the public? Hearing none. We will go into executive session. Superintendent's evaluation. We will be returning, but there will be no vote, so you need not stay. If you want to, you're free to do that.
Motion and second.
Motion second to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.